Hello, and a very warm welcome to Cultural Communication Confidence with me, Victoria Reynoldson. And welcome to this episode where we are approaching International Women's Day. And I have decided to do a focus around the theme for this year, 2026. The theme for International Women's Day is Give to Gain, all about giving support to women to gain for teams, for organizations. And I think this is a fantastic theme for this year. And as I reflected on this topic and thought about it for today's podcast, I wanted to bring a slightly different angle to the conversation. And instead about giving support to women, I was reflecting instead about what women give already with their skills, their strengths, what they bring to teams and organizations that perhaps sometimes sits below the surface, is invisible, and what it would take to make it more visible so that teams and organizations fully acknowledge it and also recognize more fully that they gain through this. And so that is the topic I wanted to jump into today. And it matters. It matters in a moment where we clearly have so much work to do with gender equity, but also in an era where so much is changing in the world of work. We have AI, of course. AI and the tech is accelerating. The pace and pressure of performance and delivery is accelerating as well. And we know that, there is plenty of divided opinions when it comes to, what does that look like for now and the future? In fact, there is plenty out there talking about what I call the doom headlines around AI, talking about the fears, the job losses, the potential detrimental impact to people's careers. But here's the really interesting thing about this. When you dig under the surface, in fact, there's lots of positive evidence for what the opportunity of AI is for job creation, for commercial opportunity, for innovation. And clearly, there is a lot of investment and focus around the AI and technical skills to unlock that, the investment in the technology, embedding that into teams and organizations. And I think this, of course, is incredibly important. But what I think is not getting enough attention right now is the real gap, which is not just technical, but human, the people gap, where human capabilities could potentially be our biggest differentiating factor to AI, which would allay many of the fears that are out there about AI replacing us in the future. And these human capabilities are very core to the work that I do and that I talk about in my book, Become a Global Leader. And they are the capabilities that I think are really important to succeed as individuals, as collectives, as teams in the future. Those capabilities are confidence, clarity, challenging conversations, and connecting with cultural intelligence. And the great news is that many women are already strong at those human capabilities already. However, because they are not focused on, because they're not talked about so openly today, they are often not seen as those differentiating factors, as the strengths that can make the difference. The perspective I want to bring here today, though, is these are not optional or soft skills in some way. They are absolutely the capabilities that can make the difference for trust, for relationships, for psychological safety, for teams performing. And this is the connection from give to gain, because when women give visibly and are acknowledged for that, when they claim it for themselves and organizations recognize them for it, then teams and organizations benefit. And that is the important point and the connection here. And if you think about it, when women give in these areas and when they're acknowledged for it, they gain even more confidence to contribute, to grow, to accelerate in their careers, to establish themselves and raise others with them. When what teams gain out of that is real focus on communication, connection, the collaboration works more smoothly, and there is better enhanced trust. And organizations, well, we know there is really strong connection between trust, psychological safety and belonging, and performance and results. What we see is that when there is less friction, when there is better trust in place, then teams can perform more quickly. They are able to bring their results, projects, and initiatives to the fore. And that is good for business. Again, the research talks about that when you have strong diversity throughout the whole organization and have, for example, women in the top positions on the board, this also can correlate to future financial performance. Really strong connection there. So what I want to do in this episode is break it down, focus in on the 4 core human capabilities that I talk about in my work, in my book, and give you a sense of how women are giving in these areas already, what we can do to make that more visible, and what teams and organizations will gain as a result. So the first pillar is confidence. Confidence is the first pillar because it's one of the most challenging ones. And particularly if we're talking about in the context of women at work, I think this is a big one that we need to look at and address. Women are most likely, and know this from my conversations and the work that I do, to see others as more confident than themselves. They're more likely to be waiting to feel confident before they apply for the job, before they put up their hand and say something, before they move forward, because they're waiting for the feeling first. My perspective on this is that confidence is not a permanent, static idea. It is meant to go up and down. It's meant to fluctuate. And in fact, people don't talk about this openly, but even the most senior people I support, there are always going to be moments where confidence is challenged, because as you grow, as your context expands and you are working with new groups, more senior people, as you are trying to influence others at a different level in your career, it is natural that your confidence is potentially then needing to grow into that new context. So what does that mean? Well, I think if we recognize confidence as a human capability, if we focus on it and talk about it more openly, if we are at all levels within an organization more vulnerable about saying when we don't feel confident, but recognize that's again not a permanent static state, we will get back to confidence again, then this allows women to recognize that they are on their journey with their confidence. They don't have to wait to feel confident before taking the action, before going for the promotion. And as well, if they recognize as well that this is something that is the journey, then this helps them to go forward. And that enables them to reach those more senior positions, which in turn inspires confidence in those who are coming behind them, the women who are also looking to them as the role models. What do teams and organizations gain as a result? Well, hopefully the linkage is clear to you. When we are able to encourage that confidence for women at all levels of their career, if we are able to change the narrative of confidence and be more open, not just as women, but all of us, all genders, then this enables more equity to come through. It enables, again, that possibility not only for more women visibility in the senior positions, but for genuinely organizations to work better, to have a better foundation for communication, collaboration, and connection. So this is the first human capability, the first pillar that I call confidence. The second pillar is clarity. And clarity mentally, but also clarity to articulate and structure your thoughts and ideas. This is also a very critical human capability because it doesn't matter how great your ideas are. It doesn't matter what your technical area is and how expert you are. If you are not able to communicate it in the language that is understood by others, so I don't mean what language you're speaking, but in the way you express it, then your ideas just simply won't land. So what it comes to with clarity is knowing how to express it, knowing how to say what you know in a way that makes sense for others. Women are often seen as and can act as sense makers, interpreters, people who can take different ideas and connect them together. And this is really powerful when women can also adapt communication in different ways and connect to people that way. What do organizations gain as a result? Well, when communication flows, when there is common understanding, when important ideas that can make a difference to business, that bring innovation, that can enable faster performance are expressed, that delivers alignment, better decisions, better organizational performance overall. So women often give in this area already. They're often very strong communicators. So it's recognizing that is a really essential human capability for everybody. And that is a core strength that they can bring. And as we can see, teams and organizations gain as a result. The third area, the third pillar of human capabilities is all around challenging conversations. This is a big topic, and clearly in any team or organization, there is always going to be disagreements or conflict at some point. What is important is what you do with that. How do you navigate that? How do you find the ways to bridge the challenges, the discussions, and potentially the fractures in the relationships? This is when you need not only emotional intelligence, but potentially cultural intelligence as well, particularly if you're working in diverse teams where you're working with people from many different cultures. You need to understand how to bridge those cultural differences and recognize how people approach disagreement and conflict in different ways. The great news is that women are often very strong in emotional intelligence and can bring different perspectives and adaptability when it comes to cultural intelligence as well. This is powerful because we can only avoid those silos and bring people closer together when we have this in place, the emotional intelligence and cultural intelligence to move forward through the disagreement. What do teams and organizations gain as a result? Well, hopefully it's clear when you don't have those challenging conversations or you've moved through them and found the solution. It means that the business, the initiatives, the projects can move forward. That means the friction is removed and there is a resolution. That means that trust and the relationship are still in place. So again, women often giving in this area with their emotional intelligence to navigate the challenging conversation, the team and the organization gaining, benefiting from that. The final human capability, the fourth pillar in my work and in my book, is connection with cultural intelligence. CQ, or cultural intelligence, is a core leadership capability, particularly in the new world that we sit in. And it is definitely more than awareness. Women's ability to read the room, to understand potentially the full spectrum of communication, not just what is said, but also the hidden cues, the non-verbal cues, is really, these areas are incredibly important for organizations and teams. When there is connection, when there is conversation and people come together, then that means we can collaborate across differences. It means that people can come together towards the goal and do their best work because they are able to understand each other, literally, and able to work together effectively. So once again, an area where women may be already contributing in a very high way, at a very high level, but perhaps not fully recognized for that. Teams and organizations gain as a result. So the reframe on give to gain that I've presented here today is that this is not just about what women giving more. It's not just about women giving women support and giving them what they need to be promoted, to be encouraged, to be raised up. But it's also about recognizing what women give already so much every single day in their role. Recognizing that those very human capabilities, those people skills, many women have at high levels and as core strengths, but they have not been historically fully acknowledged, made visible, or celebrated as the important factors in individuals and teams. What I have wanted to do today is to make that link to recognize where women are giving so strongly already and how teams and organizations are gaining so deeply. I really hope this has shifted your perspectives on this topic today. And for me, this topic is very close to my heart. It's why it sits at the heart of my book, Become a Global Leader. And you're really welcome. If you'd like to explore human capabilities in more detail, please go check that out in your own copy of the book. I'll put a link in the show notes. But, what I'd encourage you here today is to really think about who is in your team. Who are the women who are already giving so much in these areas already? How can you publicly acknowledge and visibly celebrate what they do so much and give already to the team and organization? If you identify as a woman yourself, really consider the capabilities I've shared today. Which ones are your particular strengths? How could you share more of these with your team by talking about them, by acknowledging them in yourself and in others? How do you also recognize these are important skills for everyone? I hope this has provoked some different thoughts on this topic today. I'd love to know what you think about this topic too. So do feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. In the meantime, I wish you a very happy International Women's Day. I also very much appreciate you listening to this episode, and I look forward to seeing you next time.